Welcome to part 2 of this multiple raw black and white conversion technique. This is where we've got 3 files, one for our foreground, one for our midground and one for our sky. They're all different black and white conversions, but they're all from the same original raw file. So what we're now going to do is blend them all together. And of course, to do that, we need to get them all into the same image document. So make sure you can see all 3 of the files on screen. Move the foreground one just to one side, that should do the trick, and then click on the mid image. What we'll do is select the Move tool from the toolbox and then hold down the Shift key and drag mid into the foreground. You'll see the icon change to a little plus sign. When you see that plus sign, release the mouse and it will go smack in the middle. That's why you're holding the Shift key. It puts the file bang in the middle, which means that everything's going to be in register and line up perfectly. Once you've done that, you can actually close down the mid file because it'll just clutter up our screen and we don't need it anymore because it's in this document. Do the same thing now with the sky. Click on the sky image, hold down the Shift key and with the Move tool just drag it in and then release the mouse. And then close down the sky file. So there we have it. We've got 3 documents now. Of course, we can only see our sky conversion at the moment, but there's 3 layers in this document. And to make sure we can see them, just go to Window and select Layers. And your Layers palette will pop up on screen with Layer 2, Layer 1 and Background at the bottom of the stack. Now a good idea really is to name these layers. It's just a good practice. So if we double click on Layer 2, that's our top layer, which is our sky conversion. We'll call that Sky. Then double click on the name of Layer 1 and we'll call that Mid. And of course the background, if you Alt and double click, it'll change it to Layer 0. Then just double click on it and you can call that Foreground. So that's that job done. That's a nice, neat and tidy layers palette. What we're going to do now is use a layer mask with the gradient tool. Because what we have to do is blend all our 3 layers together. If you want to see them, there they are. There's the foreground, there's the midground, and there's the sky. We need to get these blended together seamlessly so they make up one composite image. So if we click on the sky layer, to add a layer mask is really quick and easy. You simply click the Add Layer Mask icon. Click that and you'll see a white rectangle appear alongside it. What we're going to use is the gradient tool. If you can't see the gradient tool here in the toolbox, hold down the mouse on it and you may find it's underneath the paint bucket. Those 2 are interchangeable. You can swap them around. Make sure the gradient tool is selected. And then to make sure you've got the right colors, hit D on the keyboard. And that should give you white as the foreground color and black as the background color. You want to make sure you've got the right kind of gradient up here, and that should be the foreground to background, which is white to black. So make sure that one's selected and everything will be well. Oops, I've inadvertently opened the gradient editor. Let's cancel out of that. So we've got the right kind of gradient. What we're going to do now is into this layer mask, we're going to draw a gradient. So start somewhere around here in the sky, about halfway up the sky. Hold down the Shift key, which will keep us drawing a gradient in a straight line, and just drag it down and release it somewhere around there. And look at that. A seamless blend between the sky and the midground. That looks about right. If it goes wrong and you've got an awkward looking gradient, something like that, all you have to do is keep trying until you get it looking good. So holding the Shift key to keep it vertical, just keep on trying a few different gradients until you get one you're happy with. I think somewhere around there is pretty good. Yep, trying lots of gradients here, but that one looks fine there. Okay, so once you've got your gradient and you're happy with your gradient, what we need to do is do the same thing again, only this time with the mid layer. So we click on the mid layer, add a layer mask using the Add Layer Mask icon at the foot of the layers palette, click on that and you get the white rectangle again. Our gradient tool's already set up, so all we have to do is now draw a line holding the Shift key to keep it vertical. And that's not a bad first attempt actually. Let me just move the layers palette so we can see what we're doing. That doesn't look too bad at all. If you want to have a few goes at it, because it may take a few goes just to get the tone and the blend right, that looks okay to me. You can see here in our layers palette what is happening with our layer masks. The white area is revealing what's in the layer, and the black area is hiding what's within that layer. So you can see that we've stacked this together and we've used two gradients to actually blend our images together. And it looks like a pretty imperceptible blend to me. That's quite a good result. So I'm happy with that. Take a little bit of time getting your gradients accurate so you're really happy with the results. And once you've done that, it's time to move on to the next step. What we're going to do is condense all the work we've done in these layers into a new layer. Now, one way is to flatten the image, but of course in doing that we get rid of all this work we've already done. So I'm going to click on the sky layer, so we're at the top of the layers stack, and then just click the create a new layer icon to make a new blank layer at the very top of the layers stack. Now there's a nice little trick we're going to pull. It involves holding the Alt key, clicking on the flyout arrow, and selecting just down at the bottom merge visible. Keep holding the Alt key, release the mouse when you get to merge visible, and look at that. You actually flatten all of these layers into this top layer without getting rid of them. So it's a really handy tip. If you want to keep hold of the work you've done so far, you can just crunch all the layers into a new one at the top of the stack. So this layer now contains all the work we've done. We can actually switch those off and it makes no difference to the image. And this is the layer we're going to start using to work on the image, build up the contrast, and really give a fine hand-printed look to it. And we're going to achieve this with adjustment layers. So let's just move the layers palette out the way for the time being. Let's just condense it down. There we go. And our first adjustment layer is going to involve a selection. So what we're going to do is give us a little bit of room around the canvas. There we go. Pick up the rectangular marquee tool just at the top of the toolbox, and then we're going to select the sky. Something like that should do the trick, just taking in just the top of the mountains. Once you've got that selection made, go to select and feather and choose a feather radius, a nice broad feather radius of about 150 pixels. Click OK to that, and that will soften the edge of the selection and make the changes we're going to make imperceptible. So now at the foot of the layers palette, click on the create new fill or adjustment layer icon, click on that and select curves from the drop down list. That brings up our curves palette, and what we're going to do is just drag the curve down and look at that sky. It just darkens really nicely, and I think that'll do the trick. So just drag the curve down a little bit and then click OK. If you get it wrong, don't worry, these are adjustment layers, so to reopen them, just double click on the icon and you've got your curves back and you can move them around wherever you like. We'll leave that dragged down to about there, click OK, and now's the time to make another selection. We'll use the rectangular marquee again. I'll just move the layers palette so we can get to our image, and we're going to this time select the foreground. So just draw a line all the way around the foreground area, and again go to select and feather and choose a feather radius of 150 pixels. There we have it. Of course we're going for a curves adjustment layer again, so we click on the adjustment layer icon, select curves, and this time in the palette what we're going to do is give a bit more contrast. So we're going to pull the curve down at the bottom left, and by the way, if your curves palette's the other way round, just reverse it so you've got black at the bottom left corner. This double-headed arrow here will reverse it from white to black. You can have it either way, but I prefer it this way around because it makes more sense logically when you're using Photoshop. So we pull down the black side of the curves, just crush that down to create more contrast in this area, and then we're going to push up the top of the curve. This gives us an S-curve, which of course boosts our three-quarter tones or our light grey tones, and we've got the blacks and the shadows being crushed down here. This gives a fantastic contrasty result with lots of punch and lots of bite, just what we need for a good foreground to lead the viewer into the image. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time adjusting that curve to get it looking good, and I think that's pretty good there. Okay, once you've done that, click OK, and that just leaves us with a bit of contrast to inject into the middle ground. And to do this, we're going to use the lasso tool. The rectangular marquee isn't quite right for us this time, so we pick up the freehand lasso tool and we're just going to make a nice rough selection around the mountains. Somewhere around here should be good. Just along this strip here, and then back to our starting point. So we've got a rough selection which is drawn freehand around this middle strip of the image. We're going to feather this, because it's a smaller selection, we're going to use a smaller feather radius. So go to Select and Feather, and this time choose a radius of about 50 pixels. That should do the trick. Click OK, and yeah, that looks alright there as a selection goes. That looks fine. Back to the Layers palette. It's getting bigger now, this Layers palette. Click on the Adjustment Layer icon, select Curves again, and we're going to go for a nice contrasty steep curve this time. So we'll pull down the bottom of the curve. That makes it quite dark. We're going to push up the 3/4 tones just to punch through those highlights. That's pretty good. Maybe too much there at the black end of the scale. Something like that. We could maybe add a couple more anchor points into the curve just to improve the contrast. That looks pretty reasonable. Of course, you can always change it later if you want to, because it is an adjustment layer. And you can see some nice highlights coming through in that strip of mountains, some nice dark tones as well, really complementing the foreground, the dark tones in the foreground, and of course the sky. Great, well, our image is really starting to take shape. So what we're going to do is again merge the work we've done so far into a new layer. Now we've added these 3 adjustment layers, which are doing an awful lot of work to the image when you look at the difference they make. Yep, we're going to merge those 3 into another new layer. So we'll just click on the Create a New Layer icon, and we get Layer 2 at the top of the layers stack. We'll use the same trick we used last time. Hold down the Alt key, click on the flyout arrow, and select Merge Visible. And now all the work, the contrast work we've done using our curves, will also be added to our image, and we have it all flattened into one without losing any of the hard work we've put in so far. Now you may have noticed on the image that we've got a few dust spots, a few specks of dirt on the CCD of the camera. So what we're going to do is first of all fix those, and we're just going to use the healing brush to do this. So if you take the zoom tool, go in tight, let me just move the Layers palette out the way. You can see these little specks of dirt and dust on the CCD, and we're quickly going to clean those up. So we pick up the healing brush, make sure you've got a soft edge brush picked. We'll just increase brush size by hitting the right square bracket key till we've got about 30 pixels brush size. Hold down the Alt key, click on a clean area fairly near to the blemish, and then just paint over it. And look at that, it's a really fast way of cleaning up those little specks on the image. Just move across. I always scan around an image to see where there's some more problems here. It just helps you see where the problems are, and by moving across small areas at a time, you can clean them up. So we use a smaller brush, just hit the left square bracket key to make that a bit smaller, click on a clean area, and then paint over it. Another one here, this one's a bit awkward, it's in a cloud, so we'll pick another bit of cloud, like so, Alt on that bit, and then paint over. And that's not a bad job there. We'll move along, looking for, there's another one, all these dust spots, terrible things, but very easy to fix. So there's no worries there. Of course, if you've got a camera with a self-cleaning CCD, that's a real advantage. Something the camera manufacturers have been adding in recent months are shaky sensors, sensors that shake the dust off so you don't have to worry about cleaning and cloning little specks around the image. Well, I think that's pretty good now. That's a clean sky we have, so we'll double click the hand tool to go back to full screen, and we know we've got a nice clean image to work with. What we're going to do now is a little bit of dodging and burning. But before I start the dodging and burning, I want to make sure that I can keep track of my progress. So what I'm going to do, with layer 2 selected, I'm going to hit Ctrl and J. And that's the same thing as just dragging layer 2 over the Create a New Layer icon. It's just a quick way of doing it on the keyboard. It copies the whole layer, so you have an identical copy above. This is the layer we're going to run some dodging and burning on, and it means that we can switch it off when we've done our work just to see what the difference is between our starting point. So let's set up the burn tool first and foremost. Select the dodge tool or the burn tool, whichever is there, and make sure you have the burn tool present. We need to set up the options bar because the default values for the dodge and burn tools in Photoshop are way too high. They give you an exposure of 50% and you want something like 2, 3 or 4%. So set the range to shadows in the burn tool. Shadows is the one we want, so we burn the darker parts of the image only, and set exposure to 2% is actually fine. It'll take you longer to work it, but that's a better way to work with the burn tool. So 2 or 3% is all you need. And then with a nice broad brush, something around sort of 500 or 600 pixels should do the trick. We're just going to run a few smooth strokes across the sky to darken the shadows in the sky, and then we're then going to run across this foreground area. Let me just shift that layers palette once more, just to burn in the shadows and give some really crisp black tones in our image. That's pretty good. I'm just going to burn in some of this middle ground here, just to give a nice dark mountainous mass to the left of the image. And that's enough, I think. You don't need to overdo the burn tool because you've made lots of contrast changes using curves and adjustment layers. Once you've finished burning, we'll then move on to the dodge tool. So we select the dodge tool from the toolbox, and this time we want range set to highlights and exposure set to no more than 4 or 5%. That's plenty. Now with a brush, we'll use a smaller brush this time, about 250 pixels should do the trick. We're just going to dodge just up here, we'll just dodge this cloud to bring out some of the whites. You don't need to overdo it. That cloud's actually okay over on the left hand side of the screen. That looks pretty good. We're going to work away at these highlights within the mountain because that'll really bring them through nice and crisply. There's some nice highlights just peeking through now. That's good. And then we'll increase brush size to about sort of 500-600, and we're just going to work on the water here, just in this middle part of the water, to give a bit more definition and a bit more sparkle to this lovely sweeping mass of H2O. Now I've overdone that dodge in the middle there, so I'm just going to hit Control and Z to reduce that. That was just peeking out there. I don't know if you saw as I was dodging this area, but it was just getting a bit too aggressive. So I'm just going to hold back a touch. Just dodge away, and I think that's enough work actually with the dodge tool. That's looking pretty good. And as I said, what we can do is just check our progress with the dodge and burn tool just by clicking the eye icon on the dodge and burn layer, and you can see there is a pronounced contrast difference. It didn't seem to be too much when we were doing it, but that's why we made that extra layer, just so we could see how much difference it made. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with the results there. So now we've done that, I think to finish off the image we could do with a little bit of warmth. We've got a pure black and white result at present, but it'd be lovely just to warm it up a touch for that nice gold warm toned print. And this is really quick and easy to do. All I'm going to do is make another adjustment layer. I'm not making a selection first. This is going to apply globally. It'll apply to the whole image. I'm going to click on the adjustment layer icon and select Hue Saturation from the list. This brings up the Hue Sat palette, and all I'm going to do is tick the Colorize box down at the bottom right of the palette, and then I'm going to use a hue of somewhere 30 to 40 in hue, 38, something like that. That's a nice gold tone across the image. And then saturation, I'm just going to move it back to about 18. That looks pretty good. You can do a louder version if you want to. The saturation is just kind of the volume control for the color. That's too much, I think. It's not a very subtle effect there. So round about 18 looks pretty good to me. So 18 in saturation, 38 in hue for a nice kind of warm gold toned effect. Click OK, and hey presto, there we have our image. It's a long way from those early raw conversions we made, but that's how you can make multiple raw conversions, blend them together, and use a little bit of dodging and burning to finesse the image. And I think you'll agree that that black and white result is much better than the picture we started with. Hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Do use this great technique on your own pictures and see if you can cook up some outstanding mono results from your raw files. Thanks very much for listening, and we hope to see you soon in Digital Photo Magazine.